My 32 female husband, 34 male's ex, 36 female, claims I swapped our babies when I was in labor. So, my husband left his ex when he found out she was cheating on him shortly after they were married, like a month. While they were getting divorced, that's when I met him when he was a customer at my store. We had a lot in common, and we started hanging out and developed feelings pretty quick. As soon as we could, we got married. I love him so very much, and my heart told me that no matter what, I was marrying him. He's amazing. Then a few months later, after the wedding, we found out that I was pregnant. That I was pregnant with triplets. His ex called him up and accused him of cheating on her with me. No, and that she was pregnant too. To her credit, she was. And that the baby was his. But he swore to me up and down, left and right, that her baby wasn't his. And I believe him. I trust him. Anyway, I go nearly full term with babies, as far as they'd let me, and we had 3 beautiful babies that I absolutely adore. My husband was blubbering when we finally had all 3 of our beautiful, healthy babies. But it turns out when I was in labor, his ex went into labor too. And she had her sweet baby that unfortunately had to go to the NICU. My mother-in-law informed us of this later, because their mothers are friends still, after we came home with the babies. After taking time off social media to, recover from having triplets, I started receiving all these nasty messages calling me hurtful names and telling me I was a monster. Turns out, after his ex had her baby, she went to social media telling everyone I stole her babies and that I gave her my sickly baby. And all her little friends took up the cost for her and started harassing me. I'm baffled because how? I was a planet with my babies, because I have a small torso and those 3 went out. Also, my babies were big and tall like their daddy, not tiny like me. She has demanded I give her her babies back and to take her preemie baby, which I'm never going to do. And my husband has told her several times already. My brain is tired. I don't know what to do. Does anyone have any advice for me, please? Now for the top advice. Call the police and get a restraining order and a lawyer. She's screwed in the head. Yes, this immediately. She's not well. I would be very, very wary of her. I would also cease communication with her immediately. Yup, block everywhere and get the cops involved. Thankfully, my ex's new wife swapped my 3 healthy babies with this one. Sounds pretty crazy. Call the police and ask them to do a welfare check. That the baby she's currently taking care of needs to be checked. If she has psychosis, then that baby needs to be taken in by someone else whilst she gets help. Show the police everything and tell them you are scared that this child is in the house of someone who sounds like she's going through psychosis. I would definitely get a restraining order. And make sure you block all contact with her on social media. Block anyone who tries to contact you. This definitely sounds like postpartum psychosis. Very sad and very scary. Hope she gets help and that baby stays safe. People don't realize how much hormones and pregnancy can cause severe mental health issues. 100%. I had a patient who had PPP. She ended up ending her newborn, went to the top of a building, and jumped off of it. She survived, but ended up having her 2 other kids taken off of her. It has been told that if she has kids in the future, they'll be immediately taken off of her. It's sad and it sucks, but this lady needs help. Info. Was a paternity test done on her child? My husband said she hasn't asked for a paternity test, but he would gladly do one if it will settle things. Next story. My sister found out our parents want to abandon her. I'm female 32, the oldest of 4. 2 of my siblings are adults with their own home/apartment, but my youngest sister is 10. My baby sister wasn't planned nor wanted by my parents, 65 female and 68 male, and they decided to leave raising her to us. We were 22, 18, and 17 when she was born. When I got my own apartment, they started leaving her with me for a few days a week because they needed a break. I'm not sure why none of us called CPS, so they're technically still her legal parents. A few months ago, they decided they wanted to let me adopt her so they could retire and travel. I wanted to take her to the beach for a girls' weekend and ask her about me adopting her on the trip. I was going to frame it as them being too old to take care of her to try to make it hurt less. But today she walked in on my parents talking about buying a tiny house and the whole thing came out. She's been extremely quiet and withdrawn since. Honestly, the best way I could describe the situation is that someone broke my sweet, bubbly, happy baby sister. I know she needs to go to therapy, but is there anything I can do to help her in the meantime? I doubt you'll be able to do anything to make her feel better. Just be there for her. But hold up a second. Your mother was 55 when she had her? Yes. The women in my family tend to be able to have kids later, but she was definitely a surprise to all of us. My grandma had my aunt at 55. I hope I'm menopaused by then. I'm so sorry for your situation, and so glad your sister has you. As a parent, here are my recommendations. 1. Get her therapy immediately. 2. Tell her every day that you love her, that she belongs there with you and you will always be there for her. 3. Make sure your parents are paying child support. Yes, the very least they can do is pay child support since they are the damn parents. They can just foist her off on someone else because they want to go play. Crappy parents. Raise the kid until she's 10 and then ditch her to play around the world. If you couldn't raise the kids, don't have the kids. Screw those people. She must be so absolutely heartbroken and scared. I would just take her home with you, if you can, and cut your parents off. She needs to know she's loved, and you will protect her. If you go and get her, are your parents really going to stop you? I'd also be worried about her hurting herself, so it might be best she can be with someone who loves her anyway. She's staying with me right now. She's so scared that I'm going to leave her too, so she's clinging to me while trying to keep her distance, and it's breaking my heart. Poor baby. My dad left me when I was 8. Obviously a different situation, but all I could say is just be there for her. Over time, she'll realize you're not going anywhere and hopefully she will come down a bit. Does she have a room at your place? Maybe doing up a space for her with things she has picked out and knows are hers will help. I know everyone is saying therapy for her, but I hope you're getting the support you need too. Next story is titled, My 30 female husband 30 male and in-laws seem to forget that I'm a person and not an incubator. I'm currently pregnant with our first child and my in-laws' first grandchild. Everyone seems to have an opinion on how I'm handling my pregnancy, and I understand they're just excited, but it's starting to feel like they've stopped seeing me as a person and think I'm just this golden incubator. I'm pretty much not allowed to do anything except for rest without everyone overreacting. Once, I was craving something my family used to cook, so I went to make it. And when my husband saw me, he freaked out and asked me why I didn't ask our cook to make it, and insisted I go lay down again. That's another thing. We now have a cook and a cleaner because he doesn't want me to worry about anything, but also wants to make sure I'm eating as healthy as possible. Another time we went on vacation with my in-laws, and when I went to get some of our luggage, they all freaked out and were acting like I would break if I just carried one bag. My mother-in-law is constantly forcing me to eat and drink things that are supposed to be good for the baby, and whenever I say no, she makes me feel guilty until I take it. Also, I've lost count of how many times I've been recommended not to eat something because they don't think it's good for the baby. Sometimes they all talk about me/the baby like I'm not even there. They have minded my child's entire future planned out and don't seem to realize I might actually not agree with some of their ideas. When I suggest we do certain things, they say things like, I'm not sure that's good for the baby. I know they're not doing any of this to be malicious, and they're just really excited about the baby, but it's making me feel horrible. I have a good relationship with my in-laws outside of this, and my relationship with my husband has been fantastic. So I would like to find a way to get them to stop, without hurting their feelings. Any advice on how to achieve this? Have you tried standing up for yourself and putting your foot down? Tell your husband to fire the cook, because you can cook for yourself. If you want. Tell your family you can carry a bag just fine. Tell them you'll eat what you want. You obviously have done research on what you shouldn't be eating, and you will make choices you feel is right. If you don't stand up for yourself, people usually want to stand up for you, especially when you're in a position that makes you vulnerable, aka pregnancy. I wouldn't hold it against them for trying to help, but I think this is in big part of your fault for not setting boundaries. I've tried to, but I always end up feeling guilty and backing down. Again, consider it practice for when you're dealing with a stubborn toddler. They'll pull out all the stops too. Sometimes you just gotta put your foot down and let them sulk it out. For the in-laws, I am the mother here. I decide what's good for the baby. I appreciate that you're trying to be helpful, but when I say no or thanks but I'm doing it this way to something, I really need that to be the end of discussion. Or, hey guys, I'm right here, for the times when they just flat out ignore you. As for your husband, you need to have a more serious sit-down conversation about the fact that him treating you like you can't do anything is causing more stress than if he'd back off and trust you to ask for help when you need it. Even more importantly, you need to talk about how to make sure you're on the same page in terms of setting boundaries with the in-laws. Because that's only going to get worse once the kid's here unless you sort it out now. But again, you're the mom. Take charge and start setting some rules. Sounds like this can be fixed with communication. First of all, on the resting front, it's super unhealthy. Pregnant women, with the exception of some complications, need to stay active. That's a well-documented fact, so you have it clear out there. If they argue with you, the line, "I have done plenty of my own research and I'm not prepared to put my baby at risk because of the opinions of others," is ready to go whenever you need it. In terms of food and drink, etc., just let them know you're following your doctor's recommendations. You can even make a joke about how if you listened to every piece of advice you ever received about what not to eat when pregnant, you'd starve. It's time to gently set boundaries and make it clear to everyone around you that your word is final on anything and everything related to your pregnancy and body. If anyone tries to guilt you, let them know that if they can't respect your decisions regarding your pregnancy without pouting, then you'll have no choice but to involve them less. Now for the last story. I'm hating my life since having a baby, and we don't know what to do. I never wanted kids. Husband didn't care either way. We're extremely happy and beyond in love. I accidentally got pregnant 2 years ago, and surprised myself with how excited I got. Hormones are a witch. I had a miscarriage, but decided I would go off birth control and let nature take its course. I got pregnant in October and was very neutral about the whole thing. It sucked, but I wasn't sick or anything, but still just wanted it to be over. Labor was fine. It was scheduled. Nurses were fab and my epidural was mint. No problems there. We had a baby at the end of July last year. We talked about how neither of us really felt the immediate deep love other parents talk about, which was fine. He was/is a super easy baby, and our lives didn't change that much. We do everything 50-50 and it's a breeze. I was on mat leave and it worked. I went somewhere every day, got my exercise and yoga and walking, still ate healthy. We still go out a lot, play sports, have a great support system, lots of babysitting, date nights, friends over, etc. Added information. I've never been depressed, and I'm a genuinely happy, bubbly person 98% of the time. Around month 5, I started crying a lot, really hating time with the baby. I think it's because it started moving and I had to actually pay attention to do things, and just wishing I was anywhere else but in my present situation. I went to the doctor and she prescribed me Wellbutrin. I started a gratitude journal. I did meditation, etc. I went back to work early, and my husband finished maternity leave. That helped for a bit and stopped my massive hourly meltdowns. But it hasn't changed my train of thought, and now I'm basically back to where I was. Cried 4 times today. I freaking hate this life. It's not hard like people say. It's just annoying and frustrating and tramping. I count the minutes from when he gets up until I can ethically bring him to daycare. I count the seconds from when he wakes up from a nap until he can go for another one. I can't get out of the driveway fast enough when we have a babysitter coming over. I have something planned for every minute of the day when it's a weekend, because the thought of staying home all day and entertaining him sounds just freaking awful. It's not him. He's actually quite wonderful. I know that sounds insane, but I hate the act of parenting, if that makes sense. I also just don't get the worth it part. I ruined 2 years, so far. My body, my brain, I'm so dumb now it hurts. My finances, my house, my relationship. For what? Anyway, I'm essentially miserable 95% of the time now, and I can't figure out what to do. My husband just said 2 days ago the hardest part of having a baby is keeping you happy, and he's right. I can't keep living this way, and neither can he. We still can't keep our hands off each other mad, but it's just so terrible. I just wish he had done this with someone else so he would be having fun with it, not me as ruining it. I don't know if I'm looking for advice or maybe someone who feels the same way. Anything would help while I dream about running away. Edit. I'm in therapy, on medication, lots of communication with my husband/family/friends, and my baby would never know I'm not loving this. I'm trying to make this better. It's really human of you to just be open about all of this and there's nothing wrong with you at all. Parenting's like anything else in that it can be crap. You sound like you're intelligent and attuned to your emotions and you've got a good moral compass. Just that being a mother freaking sucks right now. And it's okay to just feel that. You should just talk to your husband and be totally honest. Just tell him that you love him and your child, but that doesn't change how you feel within yourself. Not everyone is built for blissful parenthood. And the crap side of it isn't discussed nearly enough. I believe if it was, there'd be such less shame attached to women who became mothers and don't glow at being appointed a role. You're not alone, and you're smart at a lot of things, and a mom is just one of them, and it's just not particularly fun right now. Try simplify it for yourself and for your partner. Thank you so much. Hearing this a couple of times is making it better. Oh, and he's well aware. The communication flows freely in this house. I do think there's a stigma around hating parenting, and it makes it so hard. Thanks. Just a reminder, this age is the hardest part. When they need you the most. I have a 13-month-old. I get it, he's into everything. But I take solace in the fact that it will keep getting easier. And then school starts. And they just become more independent and knowledgeable. You're allowed to not love it. You're allowed to be touched out. Take it easy and remember, The Muppet Show is streaming on Disney. But HBO has vintage Sesame Street. You're allowed to be touched out. This is a real thing. We often need to touch to feel loved, but with babies, they always need touch. You can be touched out. You can definitely need some space. Also, lots of parents don't actually seriously bond with their children until they can talk. That is totally fine. Sometimes being screamed at for every single need doesn't foster a loving, connected relationship. It gets easier the older they get. Keep your head up, OP. Babies are hard to raise, and honestly, people pretend it's more fun than it actually is. Maybe you will learn to get along with it as it grows up, as many parents do. Sounds like you need a group of adults to take the pressure off of being around a baby all the time. You're normal. People just don't admit all this because they are afraid of judgment. So, I'm pretty open about the fact that this blows, and all the parents around me agree. So why? Why do they make it look appealing and fun? I'd have more than one. I feel like I was conned. I definitely get the adult time, but I could always use more.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my niece's college after she publicly humiliated me? I, 45 female, am child-free by choice, but have always been close to my brother, 47 male, and his daughter, Emily, 18 female. Over the years, I've saved up a decent amount of money, and I offered to help pay for Emily's college when the time came. She's a smart kid, and I wanted to give her opportunities I never had growing up. Everything was fine until last month. I was invited to Emily's high school graduation party, which was a big deal in our family. During the party, Emily gave a speech thanking everyone for their support. She thanked her parents, her grandparents, even her friends. Then she paused, looked at me and said, "And a big thanks to Aunt, me, for not having kids, so she could spoil me like I'm hers. Must be nice having all that extra money and no responsibilities." The entire room laughed, and I froze. I could feel everyone looking at me, and all I could do was smile awkwardly. I've heard jokes about being child-free before, but this felt cruel and unnecessary, especially since I've sacrificed a lot to save for her future. My brother and sister-in-law laughed too, which hurt even more. After the party, I confronted Emily privately. She rolled her eyes and said it was just a joke, and I needed to lighten up. My brother brushed it off, saying, "Teenagers can be dumb. Don't take it personally." I've spent weeks thinking about this, and I've decided to withdraw my offer to pay for her college. I feel like she doesn't respect me or the efforts I've made to support her. When I told my brother, he blew up at me, calling me selfish and accusing me of punishing Emily for one harmless joke. Emily hasn't apologized, and now I'm questioning if I'm being too harsh. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. When they demand the money again, tell them you have bought yourself a holiday home and the money is gone. When they complain about you letting them down, tell them it's one of the perks of having no kids. You have no responsibilities to anyone. Not the a-hole. No. When they ask for the money again, just simply say, "I didn't mean it. I was always only joking about the college fund." As if I'd pay for my brother's kids' education. That's his responsibility. She hasn't apologized, which means you are not being too harsh. I understand a teenager stupid joke scenario, but if she does not apologize and repent for humiliating you, even if that was not her intention, then you still are not harsh enough. Do not cave. Have some self-respect and teach this kid and her parents that actions have consequences. Let them deal with them. Grow a spine. Driving under influence might be a teenager's stupid mistake, But after the accident and the innocent people unalived, the consequences will not disappear just because you are a stupid teenager making a mistake. Life does not work like that. I feel the same. It's the lack of apology that seals that OP is being disrespected. It's not hard to apologize when something said is intended differently than it's heard. Niece is young, but when she realized she'd hurt her aunt, an apology was the right thing. Or even a conversation about what she said and what she meant. It's not hard to apologize when something said is intended differently than it's heard. Exactly. I wanted to believe at first she tried to joke but failed miserably. Now I only see disrespect and disdain for her aunt's lifestyle. If so, she does not deserve OP's money and time. Emily is parroting the hateful BS your brother has been talking about you. Not the a-hole. Spend it on yourself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she'll regret picking her husband over her children? I, 23 female, and my husband, 22 male, moved in with my mom over the summer to help my mom with her bills and to help take care of my 3 younger siblings. The main reason for this move was because I did not want her to get back with her boyfriend that she had been dating on and off for the past 7 to 8 years. Not long after we moved in, she starts talking to him again after repeatedly telling me she was never going to get back together with him. She then goes on to marry him, and since then has taken on this mentality that she is his wife and has responsibilities towards him, so she has to be with him 24/7. Which in turn meant to me and my siblings that we would see her less, because he does not live with us. Ever since she got married, she goes directly to him after work, and the only time my siblings see her is in the mornings when she takes them to school. She's not even home during the weekends. Recently this past weekend, me and her ended up arguing over text, because my siblings missed their mom and wanted to see her. She then chooses to, instead of coming to see her kids, to call them and tell them that she is too busy to see them, and that when she was there, that all they did was play video games. But now that she is with her husband, they suddenly miss her and want to spend time with her. This made my siblings sad, which naturally made me step in and tell her off. I told her she can't be serious right now, and that obviously her children are going to miss her. That even though they might have a roof over their heads and food, that doesn't mean they don't still need their mother's presence, more than just a few minutes in the morning when they're going to school. I told her she can't seriously be picking a man that has literally shown he does not care about her over her children who do love her. She responded by telling me the same thing she told my siblings, that when she was with us, that my siblings didn't appreciate her, and that they just spend their time playing games. I'm like, be so for real. You're resenting them as if they're not literally children. Where's that energy with that man that has literally done nothing good for us? She's like, oh, so I'm a bad mom. Okay, that's fine. You'll regret your words one day. She then hangs up on me and refuses my calls and texts my sister telling her she's not going to talk to me. So I texted her and told her the one that's going to regret her words is you, and you'll be sorry for picking a man over your children. The day you learn to not put a man on a pedestal is the day you'll get your blessings. It's a serious mental problem to be so attached to a man. That I love her, but I know she's not okay by doing what she's doing. She's now no longer talking to me and only contacts my siblings. Am I the a-hole, or was this a reality check my mom needed? Edit. Since I didn't include their ages in the original post, my siblings are 10 male, 13 male, and 15 female. In case you're wondering my mom's age, she's 40, and her new husband is about late 50s. I'm not entirely sure his exact age. Their dad is 38. For those wondering where their dad is, he is still in the picture, but he also has a new partner. He comes to visit them once or twice a week sometimes and buys them food and clothes. He is supposed to be giving my mom child support, but he's not always very timely about it. I also want to acknowledge my mom does contribute financially to them still. The only issue is she is not here physically with them as often as she should be. Not the a-hole, and honestly your mom needed to hear that. It sounds like you're stepping up in a situation where your mom is neglecting her responsibilities, and that's not fair to you or your siblings. Her excuse about your siblings not appreciating her because they play video games is honestly ridiculous. Kids play games. That doesn't mean they don't love or miss their mom. They're children, and it's her job as their parent to be present, even if they aren't showering her with gratitude 24/7. It feels like she's using that as an excuse to justify prioritizing her husband over her kids. It's a CPS story waiting to implode. Parents, especially custodial parents, are expected to reside with their minor children. It's so beyond an argument. It's criminal negligence. This is not okay, and it's also making you responsible when you're a young newlywed. This is not fair to the kids or you, but thank you for being there for your siblings. I hope she opens her eyes and realizes she isn't doing them any good. Not the a-hole. I'd say that her husband made it clear that he didn't want her kids living with them, so she got you to move in so she could move out. She's at least going to have to pay you child support if you choose to bring up your siblings in the long term. As you and your husband are so young, is he okay suddenly being dad to 3 kids? If he's not, I'd be asking your mom's sister or other family members to step in and either convince your mom that child abandonment is illegal or take the kids themselves if they can. My husband fortunately does not mind, since he hasn't really taken the role of dad. He is more of an older brother to them. His only issue is the obvious stress and disappointment my mom's absence has caused. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not supporting my ex-best friend after my brother put her in the hospital? My brother was a prick to me my whole life. He's 2 years older and blamed me for his dad leaving. We have different dads. We were raised by my mom, who was very much checked out, and that made me an easy target. He wished me dead, called me a whore. He got other kids to bully me in school, and every chance he got, he told me he wished I wasn't his sister. I had a best friend through all that, Sammy. Her dad and siblings were also really great, and they took me in as a family because they knew mine sucked. When we were 16, Sammy betrayed me in the worst way by starting to date my brother. I told her I'd never forgive her. She tried to make it seem like I was the bad guy, and how dare I tell her who she could and couldn't date. She knew what my brother was like and still went and dated him. I had to pull away from her family because I couldn't be around her, but I did tell her dad. Sammy hated me for it because her dad did everything to get her away from my brother. I got a call a couple of weeks ago and it was Sammy's dad. My brother put Sammy in the hospital and her dad wanted to give me a heads up in case my brother tried to come for me. Sammy tried to reach out, but when I realized it was her calling, I shut it down. She kept trying and I ignored and blocked her. She had her sister reach out, and while we were talking, she took the phone off her sister and she told me she needed me. I told her to go to hell. A few more attempts were made and then one of her siblings called while Sammy was there and they asked me how I could do that. And shouldn't I understand what my brother is like and be there for the girl who was there for me until she made a mistake? I said there was no coming back from it, and I refused to believe she was manipulated. That it was an easy cop-out, and I owe her nothing. They tried to insult me, but I ended the call and blocked that number. I've had a long list of blocked numbers the last couple of weeks. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She went into that relationship with her eyes wide open, knowing damn well how cruel he was to you, and now you're supposed to pick up the pieces for her? Nope. She made her choices and has zero right to drag you back in his BS. Her circus, her monkeys. She literally became a bully when she started dating your brother. Invalidating you like that and dating an abusive person which she knew about is irredeemable. And to try to reach out to you? The nerve. How are you supposed to comfort her if she is part of your trauma? That was really just the worst betrayal. I came to live with you and you started dating one of the reasons I came to live with you. Shaking my head. Despicable. Nope. COP, here's the thing. You didn't say, I told you so, to her. So by definition, I think you're in the clear. Your former best friend dated your vile, abusive bully of a brother, knowing full well how he was. Try to make you the bad guy, and then has the nerve to come back to you after everything. Nah, not the a-hole. Just curious though, you said her dad was fully on your side throughout this. What did he say about this whole situation? Well, we didn't talk for years because of this. He felt sick that his daughter was dating someone like my brother, and he apologized for what he did. He also said he would always be there if I needed something, but he understood I had to pull away because I couldn't be around her. Has he said anything about the current situation? Like about how his daughters are verbally abusing you for not wanting to contact? He only called to give me the heads up. We didn't talk after that. I'm not even sure if he knows about it. Having her sister harass you shows what kind of person she really is. You can always tell a person's character by how they act when they don't get what they want. How is your relationship with your parents? I don't have one. Never met my dad, and my mom was pretty awful herself and just didn't care. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter if she goes back to her ex, I will not support her? My daughter is 26. Her ex-husband was abusive. They dated for 3 years before getting married a year ago. My ex-son-in-law changed after he married my daughter. I didn't even know about any of this until my daughter told me everything. After she got married, he abused my daughter financially and emotionally, and sometimes physically. I don't really want to go through everything, but he is a POS who literally ruined my daughter. My daughter told me everything 2 months after she got married. I encouraged her to fight for her rights, but she said she just wants to get away and doesn't want to fight. I didn't force her and had to pay a huge amount to get her a clean divorce. My daughter was broke. She lost her job and she's been living with us since then. My daughter has been depressed all these months, and she spends most of her time with me and her mother. She cuddles with us both, she vents, she tells us what she went through, and me and my wife just listen to her and try not to get angry. But my wife is always sad and tells me multiple times to take care of her. She makes me promise that I will take care of our daughter. I assure her, but she's feeling what she's feeling, as I am and my daughter is, and I can't do anything to change that. But a week ago, my daughter told us that she's been talking to her ex and has been apologizing to her and wants to get back with her. We were surprised, and we tried to tell her that we understand you love him, but he doesn't. But my daughter wouldn't listen and said she wants to get back with him and give him another chance. My wife started crying and told me to talk to her, and she left to our bedroom. I told my daughter that he can't change. Those people never do. Don't put yourself through what you already went through and your family did. My daughter said she wants to give him another chance. I tried everything. I said everything I could, but she didn't listen to me. When I had enough, I told her if she wants to be with him again, then that's her decision. But I wouldn't be able to help her again because I am already drained, and I still have to think about retirement and take care of her mother. She cried and hugged me. I told her that I am with her. I think about her, but I also have to think about her mother. She's suffering as well. My daughter didn't say anything, just hugged me and cried, ate, and went to sleep. And she started avoiding us both and stopped interacting. She just hugs us and go back to her room. When I told my wife what I said to our daughter, she got angry at me and said I shouldn't have said what I said. I should have been polite and helped her, but I made it even worse. I told her that she should have talked to her instead, and my wife also has been angry with me ever since. So, am I the a-hole here? Did I do something wrong? I just want to help and protect 2 women I love the most. I did everything in my power to help them, but now they are treating me as if I am the source of their suffering. You should advise your daughter to read Why Does He Do That by Lindy Bancroft before she gets back with her ex. It describes the cycle of abuse and the types of abusers, and could be a great tool to help her truly realize the gravity of her situation. You can find free PDF versions of it online. And get her into therapy if it's financially viable. This is a good example of the abuse cycle. It goes like this: tension, incident, reconciliation, and calm. She has gone through the calm when they first got together. Then there was tension. Then a certain incident where she moved out and moved in with you. Now the ex is love bombing, saying he has changed and things will be great. And they will be for a while. Then the tension will creep in, and then there is some incident. And boom, she's back home. She is angry with you because she wants to believe that everything is going to be good and that this cycle doesn't exist. But you can see the writing on the wall. It will get back to where it was. It is easy to blame other people, not yourself. That is why you pointing out that they are not good for each other brings their wrath to bear. At this point, all you can do is be there to pick up the pieces. One strategy of abusers is to isolate them from source of support. So if they try to leave, they have no place to go. Exactly. You need to be there for the next time because there will be a next time. Maybe suggest that you would be more supportive if they do couples therapy before any major decisions such as moving back in together. In any regards, your daughter needs therapy to get over the abuse and regain a self-worth that has been taken from her. And what is your wife doing other than complaining? The daughter inherited her immature character from her mom for sure. OP sounds like he is babysitting two grown kids.
Am I the a-hole for keeping my family out of my house in the rain because they sided with my ex-wife in the past? My ex-wife Sasha and I didn't end amicably. It was a total nightmare. Up until it was actually finalized, she was in denial about us splitting and was doing everything to keep me in her life. When that didn't work, she went overboard. We were separated for 7 months before I filed for divorce, and only a few people knew about our status. But she kept telling everyone we were still together and just trying to work it out. We weren't, but that was her lying. The divorce dragged on for a while. Around this time, I became friends with my current wife. It was almost like love at first sight. We really hit it off, and within 3 months after meeting, we started casually dating. Sasha found out and spread a lie that I had been having an affair with my wife, and that's why I left her. Then made up another lie that she was pregnant and I just left her and our unborn child for the other woman. This was total bullcrap, but my family ate it all up. They never even gave me the chance to say my side. Then coincidentally, she miscarried from the stress of the divorce and I became an even bigger monster to them. They went for my wife too, calling her a home wrecker and many other horrible names. My wife was amazingly supportive through this, and I tried to keep her out of it as much as I could. But in the end, I cut my family out. And for maybe about 3 years, we haven't spoken. My wife and I just had a boy 7 months ago. Don't know how they did, but apparently my brother managed to catch my ex in her lies. The truth has been trickling out, and now they want contact. Except I don't want contact. After how they acted, and especially not the way they treated my wife. Without ever once believing me or giving me the chance to tell my side. My mom, my sister, and my dad came to our place and begged to talk. I refused to open the door, so they were left outside. Coincidentally, it started to drizzle a little over here. Still, I didn't let them in. My brother believes I'm being an a-hole leaving them outside the way I did, when their goal was to apologize. And I guess my mom said she felt humiliated and crushed. I told him that's fine, that I'm glad they finally saw the truth. But in a way, I saw the truth and how ugly they can be. And even if they are remorseful now, my life has been happy and full without them. Now it's resorted into anger from him and my dad, thinking I'm being an immature a-hole for not even giving them the chance to come into my home. It seems wild to me that they'd go making me out to be the bad guy. I don't really know. Am I? Now for the top comments. Not a a-hole. The real reason they're contacting you is that they want to see your son. Interesting that you heard nothing from until your baby's birth. Your family could have approached by phone call, email, text, but they really want to see your baby, and that is why they tried visiting in person before offering apologies ahead of time. I've considered that the main reason too. Don't know how long ago they learned the truth. Apparently recent. That really lines up with their behavior. Don't be surprised if they make another approach. I would make sure that there are no flying monkeys that would share photos of your child with them. Wow. Not an a-hole. They locked you out of the storm of your divorce, when you could have used shelter with your family. I could keep going making parallels, but I feel this is enough. I'm assuming they arrived there through their own transportation. They could have just left instead of hanging out in the rain. I'm gonna say not an a-hole. They never should have gotten involved in your relationship drama in the first place. And it's hilariously ironic that they're mad at Opie for not giving them a chance to apologize, when none of them gave Opie a chance to tell his side of the story all those years ago. I wouldn't be open to forgiving my family for their betrayal either, especially not with them behaving like this. This isn't remorse or contrition. This is entitlement. People who are actually sorry and understand how wrong they were don't behave like this. Them calling him an immature a-hole for not immediately opening his home to them merely reiterates that they still do not grasp the extent of how messed up their behavior was. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother out for announcing his wife's pregnancy right after I announced my daughter's diagnosis? Just to make sure I represent both sides of the conflict. My brother and his wife suffered from not having kids for years, and it impacted them greatly. They loved kids in the family, but always wished to have kids on their own. Lately, we got busy with Megan's 12 health problems. She started suffering from anemia, loss of appetite, and recurring fevers. We've taken her to the pediatrician, and from there, we've learned that she has cancer. It was so devastating I didn't want to tell my family right away. Most of them have chronic conditions, and this type of news might trigger a negative reaction because they love Megan and would give everything to see her healthy. My friend suggested using Facebook, but no. My husband and I decided to gather the family at my house this past Wednesday to announce Megan's diagnosis. My aunt didn't take it well because she holds Megan dear, so she was rightfully the most devastated one. After a few minutes of complete silence, my brother started moving his seat, saying there's something very serious he wanted to tell everyone. He was hesitant, but then he and wife stood up. Then he said they just found out they were finally expecting. The family were conflicted. Some got up to congratulate them, and some remained seated. I remained seated, and my brother then approached me and expressed how sorry he was that they had to tell us in these circumstances, but said he couldn't wait since this is a huge deal for them after years of waiting, and because everyone was present. Literally everyone since said the announcements we wanted to make concerned Megan. I argued with him about how he thought this was an appropriate time, and asked if Megan mattered to him at all, since it didn't even take a minute to realize she was just diagnosed with cancer. He started reminding me of how many years he and his wife suffered from frustration and disappointment for not being able to have kids, and argued that because he wasn't able to be a father until now, he's 37, he felt he was missing out on so much for many years. And that I didn't have to finally tell him congratulations, but should at least not guilt him for feeling overwhelmed and excited to finally be a father. He said I knew exactly how much he adores Megan, and I shouldn't even think otherwise. Then said he was just sharing good news after hearing the bad news, and there was nothing wrong with that. I told him and his wife to leave my house right then. He said I won't argue anymore because of how tense I felt, but will expect me to apologize at some point. Some family agreed with me, but my parents thought I shouldn't have taken my anger out on him like that, and that I'll always remember my reaction to the news he gave and should apologize after I've calmed down. First of all, I am so sorry about Megan. You sound like a great mom, and I'm sure she's happy to have you. This one sucks, but not today, Hall. Your brother's troubles suck, but at the end of the day, it was not appropriate for him to take over your announcement like this. It was a time for Megan and for everyone to support her, and he took that from her. I get what he was trying to do, but he should have run it by you first. I do wish her luck with everything and hope she gets better. His troubles suck, yes. I mean, as a dad of two, it took us 6 years to get 2 kids. So I can relate. You know what is 1,000 times worse of not getting kids? Have your kid diagnosed with a life-threatening disease. Not today, Hall. They should have waited, and maybe personally call family members to give the good news a bit later when things sink in. It's just so inconsiderate to announce that. There's a time and a place for everything. Who the hell hears a child's diagnosis and thinks, "Ooh, this is the perfect time to announce our pregnancy"? I hope Megan will be okay, and she's lucky to have such a wonderful mother like Opie. Not today, Hall. Your kid has cancer? Too bad. But anyways, I've got some great news, folks. Exactly. Opie to her mother. So you are okay with brother essentially announcing, "So sorry your child might die, but great news, the wife and I will be able to supply a replacement grandchild"? Not today, Hall. I'm so sorry. My daughter went through the same thing at 14. Fevers, weakness, no appetite. It was cancer also. You're literally about to go through the worst experience of your life. The only advice I have is to take care of yourself. You're no good to your kid if you're so exhausted you can't think. Everyone processes cancer differently. My ex went full info mode. Had to know everything about treatment. I concerned myself with my kid's comfort, her happiness, her moral. This worked for our family. OMG the gifts. Don't let it start, it will be brutal to other kids and cause resentment. People always ask how to help. Tell them to order dinner, help with errands, etc. You'll find that people really want to help but don't know how or what to do. I found food and meals the most helpful for the family stuck at home. Again, I'm so sorry. And you will always remember the reaction to your devastating news. Wishing you and yours all the best. Not today, Hall. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not forcing my son to apologize for what he told his cousin? My son Justin, 17, and his cousin Kane, 23, grew up together. They were like brothers, but grew apart as they got older. And now Kane has a 1-year-old son that he pays child support for. I haven't seen my family in a while due to work, but I arranged a family dinner at my home, and my sister and Kane came with my parents. Justin bought a new iPhone recently with his own money. Kane saw it at dinner table and asked Justin if that was a new phone. Justin nodded. Then Kane said, Anne, I don't remember the last time I bought something nice for myself. Then went on a rant about his son's mom and her never-ending demands for money to get clothes/toys/food for his son. Justin said that his son's needs are demands, and he shouldn't see it that way since he's the father and is obligated to provide for his kid. This somehow upset Kane, and he turned his face towards Justin and casually said, Yeah, sorry, but I don't take any parenting advice from virgins. Everyone got quiet, and Justin looked around and saw the impact of what his cousin said on everybody's face. He has medical reasons for not being able to be in a relationship, so this must have really got to him. He replied, Well, at least I don't have to pay child support, so I'm going to enjoy every penny I spend the best I can. Kane was fuming, but instead of flashing out like he always does, he put his fork down, his cab on, then got up and walked out. My sister followed, then asked me for a private minute. She got angry, saying my son overstepped the line with his passive-aggressive, backhanded comments towards his cousin, and should stop rubbing his new electronics and gadgets in Kane's face with complete disregard of his struggle and inability to afford one or two of the things Justin has. I told her humiliating my son and using his medical condition to gain advantage in an argument was a low blow, then said that Kane started it by bugging his cousin, who, by the way, was minding his own business. She said his behavior was childish, that he had it coming the minute he tested his cousin, and he 100% deserved to be shut down for talking to him like that, and should be forced to publicly apologize so he won't do it again. I refused to make him apologize after she insisted, which made her complain about what an enabler I was. The dinner was ruined and she left. My father said I should make Justin apologize for causing Kane to leave dinner so he could get this over with, but I said I won't. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole, though Kane is the a-hole. He fathered a child and now he needs to be responsible, which costs money. Throwing your son's medical condition in his face is horrible, childish behavior. The only one who should apologize is Kane. He needs to be civil to his family too. It's not a one-way street that only your son needs to be civil. Also, they're 17 and 23, grown men, especially Kane. Sure, still young and immature with underdeveloped brains, but good grief. Demanding you make your 17-year-old son apologize because he hurt his 23-year-old cousin's feelings is infantilizing. They can work out their problems themselves. Or not. You march a 7-year-old over to apologize for fighting, not an adult. And even then, Kane started it. So he should apologize or drop it. Owning a phone isn't a personal insult. Not today, Hall. Your son made an incredibly valid point that Kane's child needing clothes/food isn't a demand. It's a basic necessity he as a father should be supplying. Having his mommy try and get an apology for him certainly does not paint him as being ready to be a father. Not the a-hole. This 100% cousin is the a-hole. Your son make a valid point, then he got defensive. Lash out against your son using a medical condition that he can't change. And later, because it's not going the way he wants, abandon the scene. BS to your dad. Kane was whining about his life. Oh, boo freaking who. If he didn't want to pay child support, he shouldn't have had unprotected action. Duh. Your son was putting Kane in his place. Nobody wants to hear someone rant about how awful their life is. Kane, on the other hand, was hateful to your son. You plus your son are absolutely not the a-holes. Not the a-hole. Kane sounds like he's 12. Which isn't surprising given the reaction of his mother. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being ungrateful over my high school graduation gift? This happened years ago, but it's still brought up by my parents. I, 24 female, am the youngest daughter, with my sisters being Lisa, 29 female, and Gina, 27 female. Ever since I was young, I always felt like my sisters were treated differently. Since they were closer in age, they did everything together. Ice skating lessons, horseback riding lessons, etc. Meanwhile, I was always on the sidelines watching them. Like, literally. I'd sit at wherever they were at and just watch them. My parents claimed I was too young to do those things, but I quickly learned that they probably just didn't want to have to drive me somewhere else, or didn't want to spend the money to enroll me either. I also became in charge of taking care of my sisters, being that I had to make sure that everything for their lessons were packed or they ate/packed their lunch, even though I'm way younger than them. Hell, I even got yelled at by my mom once because I didn't make sure they packed lunch when I was 15, and they were 18 and 20 years old. I was also treated like I was a lot older than my sisters or the same age as them. Anyway, I also realized when I was in high school that my parents just liked the excitement of having their children at a new stage in life. Since my sisters are only 1 year and 10 months apart, they graduated high school and started college within a year of each other. Meanwhile, I started high school when they both graduated. So it wasn't exciting to my parents when I was in high school or graduated high school. Which brings us to where I might have been an a-hole. The day of my high school graduation, my mom kept complaining about having to attend because she already experienced it twice before. So the day had already started off bad. After we came back home from the ceremony, my dad gave me a gift, which was a small Tiffany & Co. bracelet. I was happy because I love Tiffany & Co. and it was pretty. My mom started getting all mad because she told my dad that they agreed to buy me a pen from there, which was cheaper than the bracelet because my sister Lisa's 22nd birthday was going to be in a couple of weeks. That's when I got mad, and I started yelling about how Lisa got a brand new Porsche for her high school graduation, and Gina got a $5,000 purse for her graduation, but a $500 bracelet was too expensive for me? My mom called me an ungrateful brat and took the bracelet away from me. A couple weeks ago, I was talking about this story with my boyfriend's family, about why I don't talk or visit my family as much because my parents have done this a lot and even worse sometimes. His mom mentioned that while my parents were in the wrong, it's still rude to complain about any gift, no matter how small it is in comparison. I definitely see her point, but am I the a-hole? I just want to see if my actions a-hole-ish. Generally, I agree with your boyfriend's mom. However, the example you gave shows a huge unfairness that you as a daughter had a right to point out. You get to point out when you were mistreated, not an a-hole. Yes, you weren't complaining about the gifts. You were pointing out that your gift was 10% the cost of your sister's individual gifts, and your mom still felt it was too good for you. OP, in the future if you're telling this story to anyone else, consider using percentages of the value instead of the actual prices and items. I definitely think it's fair to be upset when you got a Tiffany bracelet where your sister got a Porsche, but a lot of people will just hear, I'm upset because all my parents got me for graduation was a Tiffany bracelet. And that's really not the point of the story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I would not care for my obese brother? When my little brother Teddy was born, his umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. According to my mom, he wasn't breathing for at least 3 minutes. Since then, my parents often used that as an excuse for Teddy's behavior. My childhood became a living hell with Teddy. Give Teddy your candy, he died coming into this world. Let him play with your friends, he died coming to this world. Let him open your presents, Teddy almost didn't have a birthday. I had to put up with Teddy's tantrums, mistreatment, fits, and bad behavior. If I touched a single hair on his head, I got punished, while Teddy got away with whatever he did. It became so bad that when I was 15, I moved out the house to live with family members away from Teddy, and my contact with my parents and Teddy's limited. Currently I'm 35 and Teddy's 26. When he was 18, he decided he wanted to be a competitive eater, which turned into just eating. And now Teddy weighs almost 600 pounds. Because of his weight, he can't hold a job and lives with our parents, who still cater to him and pay for everything. Since Teddy requires round-the-clock care, my parents hardly leave the house. They weren't present at my wedding, only see the grandkids if I bring them around, and all family events like dinners have to be held at their house because it's hard to move Teddy. A few days ago, Teddy suffered a bad fall that put him in the hospital. My husband and I at least came to see him. My parents complained that the hospital wasn't feeding him enough, didn't have a wheelchair big enough for him, and naturally they didn't want to hear anything about his weight. It would be easier to turn water into gold. To make a long story short, my parents pulled my husband and I aside and asked large amounts of money for Teddy's care. They said that they didn't have money to keep caring for him, and were having to dip into their retirement funds. They even suggested that once Teddy's cleared to go home, he moved in with us because my husband and I are well off with a bigger house, and so we can get a break because we have to care for him all year round while you just visit. I said no. My husband told them hell no. We both work full-time, and our kids are enrolled in sports and dance. We made it clear that Teddy would not be moving in with us, nor we would be moving our schedule around to deal with him, or giving them the money even though we could afford it. But he is your brother. You almost didn't have a brother. We left the hospital. My mom later called me, berating me for abandoning the family and Teddy, and demanding money. I told her I would not care for Teddy under any circumstances. Even if something happened to her and my dad, I would not care for my brother. It is your problem, not mine. My mom cursed me out over the phone and hung up. I do feel a little bad because Teddy's my brother, but it made my life hell, and my parents refused to take any responsibility for his behavior. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He can't hold a job and lives with our parents who still cater to him and pay for everything. They enabled him to get to 600 pounds. He's not much longer for this world. These are based on his decisions, which we're not responsible for. They need serious family therapy to see how their behavior is leading to the death of their son. They can't just help him get close to death, then pawn the problem off on someone else. They aren't going to have Teddy around for long if he stays at 600 pounds. They are killing their own kid with food. The parents will most likely outlive Teddy. Plus, it's like every 600-plus pound live TV show ever. Teddy physically cannot maintain his weight with his little flying monkeys. This is totally on the parents. The OP will get blamed for his early death too. Not the a-hole. I feel bad for you and Teddy. You were both failed by your parents. Right? There's 9 years between the two. That means it was a 6-year-old that was so horrible their 15-year-old sibling had to move out. And that wasn't a wake-up call? That's what stuck out to me too. They created such a monster of a child in only 6 years that they ran off their 15-year-old. Absolute insanity. And yet, even with this recent interaction at the hospital, the mom is still trying to use the fact that Teddy almost died at birth as a manipulation tool. I feel so bad for OP. And Teddy too. He never had a chance. Not the a-hole. What the heck is wrong with your parents? They're helping that umbilical cord finish the job. Next story. Am I the a-hole for having another child after giving my first up for adoption? When I was 17, I got pregnant with my first child. I was in a very unstable, toxic environment. Was to be a single mother. I had no family support. I was told to get an abortion by close members, but I didn't. I thought I could handle being a mom. I was wrong. I struggled hard with everything from work to childcare to bonding, and it felt like I was causing my baby to suffer along with me. I had PPD, the severe anger portion, and didn't know it. I was drowning and failing at every turn I took. So when my baby was 3 months, I decided to let her dad's aunt and uncle legally adopt her. They've never shut me out, but I was beyond guilty and disgusted with myself that I have minimal interaction with my baby. I felt she was better off without me. Fast forward 10 years. By some miracle, I have found the love of my life, and we're doing well. We've discussed my baby and the effects it had on me over the years. He's always wanted a kid, but I've been hesitant because I vividly remember failing so miserably. He's assured me everything will be fine. Still, it scares me, so I've stayed on birth control, and sometimes as extra precaution, we'll use rubbers. A couple of months ago, I missed my period. Didn't think much of it, but took a test anyway. I usually do I feel anything is off. Lo and behold, I'm pregnant. My husband is ecstatic while I'm freaking out. He tells me my circumstances are different, and I've grown as a person, so things would be okay if I had another child. When we told our families, his side was happy, but mine freaked out. They told me I was already a horrible mom. Why on earth would I have another kid to be horrible too? That I would do nothing but cause pain and eventually give this one up too. I feel terrible about having another kid because I'm terrified it'll be the same and I'll fold again. Plus, how am I gonna explain to this kid they have a sibling mommy couldn't take care of? I don't know what to do. Am I the a-hole for having this kid? Not the a-hole. Who you were as a single mom at 17 is not who you are at 27 with a partner. Don't let your family, who didn't support you at 17, drag you down. Being a parent is overwhelming, but you are different. That said, don't let your husband talk you into a kid you don't want. If you want a kid, now and with him, go for it. Not the a-hole, but your family, all of them saying anything, are. You're a teenager, having a child, alone with PPD. I was mid-20s, married with an awesome support system, and barely made it through because of PPD. My husband and his family got me through, along with therapy. You didn't fail as a mother, you didn't fail your first child. You did what you have to do to save your own life and your child's. You saved both of you. Not to cause her freak out, but ever hear those horrible news stories where mom drives her and kids off the bridge in a family minivan? PPD. While it's not always that serious, it easily can be. 1. Relax. Take a deep breath. Steady yourself and make a plan now. 2. Your family has got to go. They didn't support you then. They're not supporting you now. No contact, at minimum for the duration of pregnancy and a good chunk, if not all, of baby's first year. That will be the hardest for you. You do not need any outside negativity at this time, not one little bit. The time right now is for you to focus on you and your child only. 3. Treatment and therapy is necessary. You've already had PPD. Don't wait for it to happen again. Start now. Take it very seriously. It will help immensely. For your husband and his family, lean on them and lean on them hard. They're there for you, so use that to your advantage. You are not alone. You have them. Talk with your husband, let him know about the PPD then, how serious it can become, and let him know you're afraid and in need of help. Possibly set up something with his family with alternating weeks between people to assist when you become later term and for a while after the baby is born. PPD can last a long time, 3 to 24 months after the baby is born. Even if it's just lunch dates with someone, anything with help. All the positive support you can get, suck that up. 5. Your first child. How do I explain to this kid they have a sibling mommy couldn't take care of? Easily tell the truth, age appropriate of course. There is zero reason your first child should be kept a secret. You don't need to take out an advertisement or anything about it. But if asked when they're young, just say, Mommy was too young. I didn't know Daddy then and was unable to care for a baby by myself then. If they do not ask, do not tell them. Let them know they have a half-sibling. And let them know why. It could also be a great opening for a talk with a teen. Teenage pregnancy is so very hard to go through. Mommy was not able to. I learned the hard way to use protection always. 6. You got this. Edit 1. I want to I can't express just how humbly, and sincerely thank everyone for their advice. I'm in tears reading these responses because other than my husband, who is the sweetest, most supportive person I've ever met, I've never had anyone tell me it wasn't wrong to go to the adoption route. I will be turning to therapy to try to help with these feelings and doubts. I will also be cutting off my family. They've contributed to a lot of my issues in life, and I will not allow that energy around this new baby. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not calling out my son for treating my daughter badly? I have 2 kids, a son Ben, 44, and a daughter Emma, 42, female. Their father and I divorced when they were young. He wasn't a good husband, but he isn't a bad man. He is wealthy. He didn't bond with Emma, but he favored Ben, and it became overt as they grew up. Ben was easier than Emma and did well in school and sports. Emma, although smart, wasn't interested in school and was rebellious as a teenager. Their father spoiled Ben, and if I'm honest, he wasn't nice to Emma. If this upset her, she would cry, feeling unfairly treated. I felt bad, but I couldn't do anything about it, so felt it better to pretend it wasn't happening and hope it got better. It didn't. He wanted nothing to do with her, although there wasn't a reason why. Emma struggled to cope with this, and I think expected me to stand up for her. But I hate confrontation, and her father never listens to me anyway. I preferred not to discuss it with Emma and focus on other things. But she said I didn't allow her to be upset and didn't validate her. I didn't want to potentially cause a bigger rift and cause Ben to side with his father. Ben, on the other hand, was lavished with anything he wanted. Money, cars. He was expected to be successful like his father. As adults, the relationship between Ben and Emma fizzled out, which was sad because I couldn't do anything about it. Despite being given a large amount of wealth and more opportunities than most, Ben hasn't become successful, and he's quite resentful about it. His father stopped giving him money a few years ago, and he partially blames me because I told his father that he had given him too much. Despite being an easy child, Ben has grown up to be rather difficult. He has a temper and is very sensitive about his lack of career success, so we aren't allowed to talk about it. Emma's a stay-at-home mom. She's a good mom and her children's father earns a lot of money. Her father was regretful, so he reconnected with her. They have a relationship now. It's quite superficial, but I think it healed the wound a bit for Emma, so she reached out to Ben. They got along well for a couple years, but Ben stopped speaking to Emma. Emma was upset, and think it's because Ben doesn't like their father's interest in her. Ben hasn't given her an explanation, but he told me a silly reason that doesn't make sense. I told Emma I think Ben has behaved very badly. She asked me if I told him that. I said no, and she shouted at me that I have never stuck up for her or protected her. That if I can't do it this one time, she doesn't want a relationship with me. That I enable this behavior at her expense, and she's sick and tired of it. The thing is, Emma has 3 kids, and Ben has 1 kid. Emma will still allow me to have a good relationship with her kids, but Ben has made it difficult for me to see his kid in the past when he's angry. So I'm afraid he will do that again and stop speaking to me. I also don't want to be forced to be in the middle of them, so I won't do it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the judgment. You're the a-hole and so weak. I feel for Emma. Absolutely spineless. That was my first reaction reading this. How can you be so spineless? Opie, you're the a-hole. Those are your kids. You're supposed to protect them and support them. And all you did was let them both down. Shame on you. Because as long as Emma was the target of her father and brother's mistreatment, then Opie wasn't. What an absolute awful human being. Because I refuse to even call her a mother. You're the a-hole for being a total failure as a mother to your daughter. You allowed this behavior by not sticking up for her. So what if you hate confrontation? Does that give you a right to emotionally abandon your daughter and be a silent accomplice to her torment? You are terrible. And if I were her, I'd never speak to you again, since you just want to suck up to your son for the sake of being grandma. I hope Emma cuts you all out of her life. You've all failed her. Exactly this. You're the a-hole OP and you have failed both of your children for your own comfort. Pretty soon both of them will go no contact with you, and you won't have to worry about any of it. I felt bad but couldn't do anything about it, so I thought it'd be better to pretend nothing was happening. You failed your kids. You failed them by letting them be treated so wrongly. Parents like you why adult kids go no contact. Shame on you. Yes, that makes no sense. Even if she couldn't change the way the father was being, talking to her daughter, giving her more emotional support, etc., would have been useful. Instead, she just acted like nothing was happening. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying that someone old enough for social media is old enough to know Santa does not exist? The other day on Facebook, I made a post about how it's my first Christmas as a grandma this year, and I'm excited to play Santa again as my son and his girlfriend live with me, so I'll be helping them assemble toys, wrap gifts, etc. They asked me to. My nephew is 12 years old and has a Facebook account, and had added me as a friend a while ago. He never posts, so I forgot we were even friends. A few hours later, I get a text from my sister saying I ruined Christmas, and why did I have to post about Santa? I was confused, and she said her son still believed in Santa until he read my post. She demanded I apologize to him and tell him I was joking. I told her no. This isn't the 5-year-old who accidentally overheard, and even then I don't know if I'd feel comfortable lying. He is almost a teenager, who honestly should have known by now. If he is old enough for a Facebook account, he is old enough to know Santa doesn't exist. This has caused a bit of controversy, and I do feel bad that I ruined magic for my nephew. Am I the a-hole? There is no way a 12-year-old these days still believes in Santa. Your sister is deluding herself about that. You didn't ruin anything. She's in denial that her baby is growing up. Not the a-hole. Homeschooled, maybe? It's not hard at all to believe a kid with an overprotective mother wouldn't know about Santa. My kids are 8 and 10, and are homeschooled and know Santa's not real. I have friends with school children who believe at 12. These are parents who let them watch what I frankly feel is inappropriate things, and they still believed. However, if your child is on social media, and shouldn't be till 13, then you need to be prepared for adult things. Not the a-hole OP. Not the a-hole, and yes, if she's still protecting his belief that Santa's real, he's clearly not mature enough to have an online social media profile. No, Mom is clearly not mature enough, being angry that her 12-year-old son found out about Santa. It's not the kid's fault that he has a dumb, overprotective mother. It's nice when preteens maintain some innocence, but if he is on the internet and social media, then how have they kept it from him for so long? I feel like they've used Santa to keep him in line and as a discipline tactic. Also, I think Santa is toxic AF, and I'm still not sure my young children are going to be brought up on him. I know what you mean about toxic. We took care to never refer to naughty/nice, hold presents hostage, or base gifts on behavior. We also refuted some of the weird songs about him watching you all the time to determine if you are good or bad, because that's just plain weird. I think you can keep the tradition and the fun without weaponizing it.